Some moments in NBA history aren't remembered for athleticism, they're remembered for blood, broken bones, and straight-up savagery. Tonight, we're diving into the darkest crevices of the hardwood, where legends became predators, where one swing changed everything, and where the game got so dirty it stained till this very day. This is the story of when basketball players ignored all boundaries and rules and allowed their emotions to lead. December 9th, 1977. One punch, two lives. One nearly died. The other wished he had. The Lakers and Rockets were locked in another physical battle when Kevin Cunnert and Kermit Washington got tangled up. Just another scuffle in the violent 70s NBA. What happened next would reportedly change basketball forever. Rudy Tomjanovich, the peacemaker, described by teammates as someone who never even been in a fight, saw his teammate in trouble and ran toward the action. According to witnesses, he wasn't coming to fight, he was coming to break it up. Kermit Washington saw a blur in his peripheral vision. He turned, he swung. He followed all the way through. His face was severely fractured, including a broken nose and jaw. His skull was damaged and fractured. He suffered a brain concussion. He experienced spinal fluid leakage from the brain cavity, so severe he could taste it. His facial bones became detached from his skull. He required facial reconstruction surgery. Doctors weren't sure he would survive the night. "I saw him coming and I just swung," Washington told reporters afterward. "I had no idea who it was. It was an honest, unfortunate mistake." But mistakes have consequences. According to NBA records, Tomjanovich spent approximately 5 months in recovery. Multiple surgeries were reportedly required. When he returned, he somehow made the All-Star team, a testament to his incredible will. But sources suggest the punch changed him forever. Washington received a $10,000 fine and a 60-day suspension, a then-record suspension for an on-court incident. But the real punishment was the stigma. He became the poster child for NBA violence. Teams wouldn't touch him. Fans called him a monster. Here's the twist that'll blow your mind. In 2020, as Rudy Tomjanovich was celebrating his Hall of Fame election at age 71, Kermit Washington was reportedly serving time in federal prison for charity fraud. The same week, one man reached basketball's highest honor. The other was paying his debt to society. The punch lasted 1 second. The consequences lasted a lifetime. But Kermit Washington's punch was just the beginning. Because in the 1980s, the NBA became a war zone. Larry Bird and Dr. J, 2 Hall of Famers, one headlock, 3 punches that shocked the world. November 9th, 1984, Celtics versus Sixers. The rivalry was already nuclear, but what happened next turned it radioactive. It started with trash talk, Bird's specialty, but Julius Erving had reportedly heard enough. The doctor, the smooth operator, the gentleman of the game snapped. Bird found himself in a headlock, defenseless as Dr. J unleashed what appeared to be 3 vicious blows to his face. Charles Barkley and Moses Malone held Bird back, while Erving pummeled him. This wasn't a fair fight. This was one of them old school schoolyard jumpings. Both players were ejected and reportedly fined $7,500 each. Damn. Old Larry got ganged on for getting violated and had to pay the same fine as the violator. But here's the crazy part. Bird dropped 42 points in 30 minutes before being ejected in the 130-119 Celtics win. Maybe that's the reason this happened. It wasn't personal, Bird said later, but everyone knew it was. The aftermath, Dr. J's reputation reportedly took a hit. The smooth, classy superstar had shown his dark side. Bird, he wore those punches like a badge of honor. If superstars were throwing punches, imagine what the enforcers were doing. Kevin McHale had one regret about clotheslining Kurt Rambis. It wasn't that he did it, it was who he did it to. 1984 NBA Finals, Lakers versus Celtics, Game 4. The series was tied, tensions were boiling, and Kurt Rambis was about to become a lesson in what not to do. Rambis went up for what should have been an easy layup. McHale had other plans. The clotheslines were reportedly vicious. McHale's forearm appeared to catch Rambis across the neck and head, sending him crashing to the floor like he'd been hit by a truck. No apparent attempt at the ball, pure violence, straight savagery. The wild part, it was called a regular foul. No flagrant, no ejection. McHale stayed in the game. Look at this, he still played after that. It wasn't worthy or magic. McHale reportedly said years later about his only regret. He allegedly wished he'd clotheslined a star instead of a role player.
I really don't think that Kevin had any intention to do that.
That's the mentality of the 80s NBA, and why they say a lot of players wouldn't make it today. The message was sent. The Celtics weren't going to let the Lakers run easy, fast breaks. If you wanted to score, they were too. But McHale was a choir boy compared to what's coming next. Robert Parrish was reportedly the calmest man in basketball until Bill Laimbeer pushed him too far. 1987 Eastern Conference Finals, Celtics vs. Pistons, Game 5. Parrish had allegedly endured years of Laimbeer's dirty tactics, the cheap shots, the trash talk, the constant provocations. After Laimbeer's hard foul on Larry Bird, something inside the Chief reportedly snapped. Parrish lost it. He started wailing on Laimbeer from behind, pummeling him over and over with his fists. The reserved, quiet veteran became a man possessed. He was called for a foul and nothing more during the game. But the NBA later suspended him for Game 6 and reportedly fined him $7,500. Think about that. It took Bill Laimbeer to make Robert Parrish, one of the most composed players in NBA history, completely lose his mind. Parrish snapped once, but there was one man who made a career out of making others snap. Bill Laimbeer was so dirty they made a video game about it, and somehow that wasn't even his worst offense. Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball, a 1991 video game where players wore armor and used weapons. The description read, "Basketball is to be an extremely physical game that includes hitting, shoving, punching, and tackling." That was Bill Laimbeer's NBA. He embodied the bad boys Pistons, every cheap shot, every dirty play, every moment that made you question if this was basketball or warfare. Laimbeer was at the center of it. He allegedly fought everyone, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, even his own teammate Isaiah Thomas in practice, breaking Thomas's hand in the process. Thomas had been previously elbowed by Laimbeer, which resulted in a broken rib. The wildest part? After retiring, Laimbeer became one of the most successful coaches in WNBA history, winning 3 championships with the Detroit Shock. He brought that same physical, aggressive mentality to women's basketball. But here's the ultimate irony. While Laimbeer was building a coaching legacy, his reputation from his playing days still haunts his Hall of Fame chances. Laimbeer perfected the art of the cheap shot, but in the 90s, the violence began to evolve. Karl Malone delivered a lot of things in his career, but what he delivered to Isaiah Thomas required extensive medical attention. On December 14, 1991, during a game between the Detroit Pistons and the Utah Jazz in Salt Lake City, Karl Malone elbowed Isaiah Thomas in the head. The blow caused a significant cut above Thomas's left eye, requiring more than 40 stitches to close. Thomas received 15 internal and 25 external stitches for the inch-long wound, according to the Baltimore Sun. Thomas claims to have received 42 stitches, according to Deseret News. Thomas was briefly taken out of the game for treatment and remarkably returned in the fourth quarter of the game, which the Jazz ultimately won 102-100. Malone was ejected from the game due to a flagrant foul and subsequently fined $10,000 and suspended for 1 game by the NBA. The incident sparked considerable debate about Malone's intent. While Malone denied intentionally trying to hurt Thomas, Pistons players and some observers believed it was a retaliatory act for Thomas's 44-point performance against the Jazz just a month earlier. According to the Baltimore Sun, Thomas had lit them up for 44 points the last time. Many Jazz players considered Thomas's earlier performance as excessive and payback for Thomas's exclusion from the 1992 U.S. Olympic team in favor of Jazz point guard John Stockton. Years later, Thomas called the play the dirtiest and cheapest foul he had experienced in his career, according to Deseret News. Deseret News reports that Thomas later said Malone eventually apologized to him, stating, "Now, I meant to hit you, but I didn't mean to do that." Look at that replay. Watch Malone's approach. His arm appears already bent, already cocked. This didn't look like a basketball play. This appeared to be premeditated. The Pistons were furious. This was their leader, their floor general, nearly taken out by an elbow that had nothing to do with basketball. Malone's elbow appeared calculated. What happened next was pure insanity. Dennis Rodman kicked a cameraman in the groin. No technical foul was issued at that moment, but Rodman ultimately paid a $200,000 settlement to Amos. Furthermore, the NBA suspended him for 11 games, costing him over $1 million. January 1997, Bulls vs. Timberwolves. Rodman dove for a loose ball, crashed into the stands, and when he got up, he saw cameraman Eugene Amos. For no apparent reason, absolutely no reason, Rodman reared back and kicked Amos directly in the groin. The cameraman doubled over in pain. Rodman was ejected, and somehow he looked pleased with himself. The aftermath was swift and expensive. 11-game suspension, $25,000 fine, significant settlement to Amos, substantial total costs. I have no idea what was going through Dennis Rodman's mind, the announcer said. Neither did anyone else. That was the problem with Rodman. He was completely volatile. Rodman was unpredictable, but some players made dirty plays look like an art form. Bruce Bowen didn't just play defense, he performed surgery with his feet. March 1st, 2002, Spurs vs. Timberwolves. Wally Szczerbiak went up for a shot. Bowen went up to contest it. But instead of using his hands, Bowen appeared to lead with his foot, making contact with Szczerbiak's face. Szczerbiak ran his face right into my foot, Bowen claimed afterward. Right, because that's how physics works. The NBA fined Bowen $7,500 and reclassified it as a flagrant foul. But the damage to his reputation was done. This became the signature play that defined Bowen's career. Not his lockdown defense, but his controversial tactics. The league eventually implemented rules requiring defenders to give shooters adequate landing space. They call it player safety. Everyone knew it was the Bruce Bowen rule. Bowen was surgical. His teammate was about to get surgical revenge. Robert Horry's hip check lasted 1 second. It destroyed a championship dream that took years to build. Game 4, 2007 Western Conference Semifinals. Suns vs. Spurs. Phoenix was up, seconds ticking away, when Steve Nash brought the ball up court. Horry saw his chance. As Nash dribbled past, Horry delivered what appeared to be a textbook hockey hip check, sending Nash flying into the scorer's table. It was beautiful in its brutality and devastating in its consequences. Horry was ejected and suspended 2 games, but the real damage was to Phoenix. Amare Stoudemire and Boris Diaw left the bench during the altercation, an automatic suspension under NBA rules. Game 5 without Stoudemire and Diaw, the Spurs won easily. Series over. Championship dreams crushed. It was a hockey foul, Raja Bell said later. Nash admitted he put a little sauce on the fall, but the damage was real. 1 hip check, 1 second, 1 championship stolen. Individual cheap shots were bad enough, but in 2004, the entire league exploded. November 19, 2004, the Malice at the Palace. The night fans and players went to war and nobody won. It started with a hard foul. Ben Wallace shoved Ron Artest. The benches cleared. Just another NBA scuffle. Then a fan threw a cup at Artest. That's when basketball became a melee. Artest charged into the stands. Steven Jackson followed. Jermaine O'Neal threw haymakers. Fans threw punches back. Security was overwhelmed. The world watched in horror as the NBA's worst nightmare played out in real time. 9 players suspended for approximately 146 games total. This included the Pacers' Ron Artest, 86 games, Steven Jackson's 30 games, Jermaine O'Neal, 15 games, Anthony Johnson, 5 games, and Reggie Miller, 1 game, along with the Pistons' Ben Wallace, 6 games. Chauncey Billups, 1 game, Eden Campbell, 1 game, and Derek Coleman, 1 game. Millions in lost salary. Players lost approximately $11 million in salary due to these suspensions. Multiple players faced criminal charges. 5 Pacers players, including Artest, O'Neal, and Jackson, were charged with assault. They all pleaded no contest and received a year of probation, community service, and anger management classes. Several fans charged with assault. 5 Pistons fans also faced assault charges. One fan, John Green, was found guilty of 1 count of assault and battery and sentenced to 30 days in jail and 2 years probation. Another fan, Brian Jackson, was charged with felony assault for throwing a chair. David Stern called it the darkest day in NBA history. He was right. The Palace burned the league's reputation, but individual players kept lighting matches. Carmelo Anthony threw what many considered the worst punch in NBA history, not because of the damage, because of the alleged cowardice. December 16, 2006, Nuggets vs. Knicks. A brawl erupted at Madison Square Garden. Players were throwing hands, benches cleared, chaos everywhere. Marty Collins wasn't looking. The fight appeared to be over. Anthony wound up and threw what appeared to be an open-handed strike, then immediately backpedaled away from the confrontation. It appeared pathetic, a sucker punch with an open palm, followed by an immediate retreat. If you're gonna throw a punch, at least make it count and stand your ground. Anthony received 15 games, one of the longest suspension in NBA history. His reputation took a hit he never fully recovered from. The league's leading scorer had become its biggest coward. Anthony's punch was pathetic, but the new generation brought a different kind of violence. Raja Bell smiled after clotheslining Kobe Bryant. That smile said everything about their alleged hatred. Game 5, 2006 Western Conference quarterfinals. Suns vs. Lakers. Bell had endured enough of Kobe's trash talk, his arrogance, his constant contact. As Kobe dove to the basket, Bell was waiting. The clothesline appeared vicious, a forearm directly across Kobe's throat, sending him crashing to the floor. But it was Bell's reaction that made it legendary. He stood over Kobe, smiled, and started jawing. No apparent remorse, no apology, pure satisfaction. "I have no respect for him," Bell said afterward. "I think he's a pompous, arrogant individual." Bell was suspended 1 game. Kobe later joked that Bell might not have been hugged enough as a kid. The Suns won the series in 7 games. Bell's mother told Kobe after Game 7 that he needed a hug. Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade tried to end each other's careers. They succeeded, just not how they planned. 2011 playoffs, Celtics vs. Heat. The rivalry was personal, bitter, and about to turn dangerous. First, Rondo fouled Wade hard around the neck. Wade hit the floor, but got up talking trash. Message sent. The game was officially on. Later in the series, Wade got his revenge. As Rondo drove to the basket, Wade grabbed him and pulled him down hard. Rondo's elbow dislocated on impact. The injury was gruesome. Rondo's arm bent at an unnatural angle, but somehow he popped it back in and kept playing with one arm. Punk play, Wade called Rondo's earlier foul. The irony was thick. Both players' careers were defined by this rivalry. Both paid the price for their hatred. Kevin Love stomped on a face. Reggie Evans grabbed something he shouldn't have. Meta World Peace lived up to none of his name. The stomp. Kevin Love accidentally stepped on Luis Scola's head during a rebound battle. Love claimed it was unintentional. The NBA suspended him 2 games without pay. Scola wasn't buying the accident excuse. The grab. Reggie Evans reached inappropriately during a playoff rebound battle with Chris Kaman. Kaman's reaction said everything. Evans was fined $10,000. The Clippers were outraged the NBA didn't suspend him. The elbow. Back for another visit at being on bullshit. Meta World Peace, the man who changed his name to promote peace, wound up elbowing James Harden in the temple while celebrating a dunk. Harden suffered a concussion. World Peace was ejected and suspended 7 games. That same elbow cracked Michael Jordan's rib, accidentally.
I played against Michael the first time in the summertime when I accidentally broke his rib. In the summertime, Mike go hard everywhere.
The irony was perfect. A man named World Peace delivering one of the most vicious blows in NBA history. "I was just celebrating," World Peace claimed. Right, because celebrations usually involve targeting opponents' temples with maximum force. 7 games and a reputation that went from quirky to dangerous overnight. But these individual moments of madness pale in comparison to what we're about to explore, because there's one question that changes everything. Imagine if Kermit Washington's punch happened today. The video would go viral before Rudy hit the ground. His career would be over before the ambulance arrived. Think about it. In 1977, only 20,000 people saw that punch live. Today, 20 million would see it instantly, from 50 different angles in slow motion with expert analysis and immediate judgment. Twitter would go nuts. X. Hashtag Kermit Washington would trend worldwide. Sponsors would flee within hours. His jersey would be pulled from stores before he left the arena. The mob would be swift and merciless. No context, no second chances, just digital execution. But social media isn't the only thing that's changed. Today's NBA doesn't just find players, they assign them therapists, anger management coaches, and PR teams. The league learned that protecting the brand means protecting the players from themselves. Modern players have mental health resources, anger management programs, media training, 24/7 support systems, financial advisors who remind them what they'll lose. When you're making $50 million a year, you can't afford to throw punches, literally. Compare the suspensions. Kermit Washington, 1977, 60 days. Meta World Peace, 2012, 7 games. Today's equivalent, probably 50-plus games. The money changed everything. These aren't just basketball players anymore. They're very lucrative investments, and investments don't throw haymakers. The league evolved, but human nature didn't. Players today can't throw punches, so they throw shade on X. They can't clothesline opponents, so they destroy them in podcasts. The violence moved from the court to the timeline and feed. Draymond Green can't elbow someone in the face, but he can destroy their reputation on his podcast. Kevin Durant can't punch a teammate, but he can create burner accounts to attack them online. The weapons changed, 1980s fists and elbows, 2020s tweets and words. The damage is different, but just as real. Ask Ben Simmons how social media violence affected his career. Ask Russell Westbrook how online harassment impacts mental health. The blood has been cleaned from the hardwood. The punches have been replaced by passive-aggressive Instagram posts. But make no mistake, the game is still dirty. It's just that today's weapons are Wi-Fi connections and blue check marks. In 1977, Kermit Washington's punch nearly killed a man and changed basketball forever. In 2024, a single tweet can kill a career just as dead. The violence evolved, the consequences didn't. These weren't just cheap shots, they were moments that revealed who these men really were when everything was on the line. Some careers ended, some legacies were destroyed, and some players learned that in the NBA, what goes around comes around with interest. Robert Parrish learned to control his temper, but Bill Laimbeer became a championship coach. Rudy Tomjanovich reached the Hall of Fame. Kermit Washington went to prison. The game has changed, the violence has evolved, but the question remains, in a league worth billions, how much is violence really worth? Some paid with suspensions, some paid with money, some paid with their careers, but they all paid for sure. Because in the end, the house always wins, and in the NBA, the house doesn't forget. This has been Beyond the Buzzer, where the real stories happened after the final horn.